Good morning and welcome to Lyceum.
Good morning.
So happy everyone's here today. Of course, I always say thank you for being here physically, virtually, and spiritually. This month we're going to continue our talk on natural law. We have the natural law guru teacher with us today. You didn't know that, did you? So please, let's play Stump the Teacher today. No? So without further ado, let me introduce our teacher, the Reverend Diane Davis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've been told that I don't have to stand close. Jamie, will you let me know if I'm not audible to those out there?
I shall.
Because I do like to move around if I can. My name is Diane Davis. I've been in this community longer than some of you have been alive. And I've been a teacher and a medium, but most importantly is prior to all that, which is something close to 45 years, I was a worker in a hospital as the administrative assistant, and then I worked in an accounting firm as chief gopher. You know gophers, they do a little bit of everything, but they don't know a lot of anything. Anyway, and I had a cartoon over my desk that said I type 120 words a minute and you can read some of them. That was one. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning those things is that sometimes, and especially when Reverend Kent was lovely enough to mention that I was a natural law guru. I don't really set myself up that way, but I studied and studied and studied and listened and listened and listened, and I'm not as much of a book reader as many other people are, but there are a lot of books about natural law. And so today you're going to hear my version. And I know that each Sunday in this month of October, you're going to hear other versions. They are not argumentative, and they are not necessarily totally different, but the uniqueness happens to be because of the people involved. And so that's another reason why it's an interesting thing with natural law, is that the word nature means inborn or inbred. So it's what's within you. It's not just what's within me or anybody else here or elsewhere. It's what's within you. And it's what's within your life. And it's the energies of your life that you comprehend and those that you might not fully comprehend but wish to, and how you use those and how you apply them and how we see them applied in other instances in our life, other instances that we get to observe either on the news or in the universe in terms of what's being explored and discovered, etc. So when we're talking laws, we're not talking absolutes. Laws, Webster's dictionary definition is a law is a system of control. And so natural law is an opportunity to have more control of what's inborn in you, so that you can live the fullness of your own truth, of your own life. It doesn't mean that you always agree with everybody, but it doesn't mean that you have to be argumentative and rebellious either, because if you stand for what you feel, and if you feel something, and it's this yes or no, right or wrong, good or bad kind of sensing, sensing, we often talk about it as an intuition. But most of us in our society at this time don't get to enjoy the fullness of that sensing capability that we have because of all the fears that are projected daily at us, or the fears that we are exposed to, or the fear that we have of all those things that we project. And so it's rampant actually at this time. The quote I want to give you at the beginning here, and for those of you who like to write notes, please write this down because it will sound profound, and there's just so much profundity that I can exhibit, is that it's never too late to worry. And it's always too early to worry. And let your worry wait. And it often dies waiting. And something that occurs for all of us at this time, because with the quarantine, with the restrictions or limitations that some people are experiencing, it places people in a posture often of self-reflection, self-insight, and it also pursues that within relationships. And those aren't relationships that are necessarily intimate or with spouses, lovers, or romantic partners. Those relationships can be with anything or anybody. And so one of the laws of nature has to do with relationships. And the biggest relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. Something that I wanted to do today. Something I wanted to do today, and some of you may have seen somebody do this in another class, but they copied me because I established it many years ago. Anyway, what I want to ask is, the woman here in the blue with the pink, what is this? And I don't need a 3-sentence explanation, just something simple.
Ball of paper.
Ball of paper? Yes, ma'am. The gentleman black right here behind the gentleman in the beige.
Gray crumbled paper.
Gray crumbled paper. Good for you. What about you, sir?
Paper ball.
Okay. What if I said to you, this is to show you how unique the laws of your universe are. What if I said to you, this is a folded piece of paper? A folded piece of paper. And most of us, me included, would say, oh my gosh, that's a crumpled piece if I ever saw one. She wadded that baby up there like that and everything. Okay, so what happens is that your perspective of anything in your life comes this way, doesn't it? So it doesn't see what's on my side, does it? And yet most of us are busy projecting that the other people ought to know, or should care, or should, coulda, woulda, right? I know. It gets to be a drag, doesn't it? But remember, the beautiful thing is that I have a perspective and you have a perspective, and that goes back to the uniqueness of who each of us are. And so when you see this and you say, well, she's really a creative folder, that lady, is that you can often establish a new relationship with an individual when you understand them one pinch more, correct? Just one more thing that you begin to establish within you that says, I recognize many things. And one of them is that we're different in how we do things. And yet, in the long run, it's still a ball of paper. And so nobody got harmed in this experience, did they? Okay, so the other quote that you can write down, right? Ready? It's not life-threatening. Now, there are some things that are physically threatening. Driving your car on the wrong lane, that's tricky. Got it? But how many things do you worry about or fear that are truly not life-threatening, and yet prior to the pituitary changes in your body, between the ages of 5 and 7 years old, do you remember when you were little? I don't remember a whole bunch of those ecstatic years of doing whatever, but I remember little parts and pieces, little memories here and there. What about you? But one thing that we take into adulthood is often our fear, and it's been established by the time that we're very, very young. And most people in child development will tell you that a child doesn't have a reasoning capability or skill set fully by the age of 5. Is that correct?
That's what I understand.
That's what I understand. And I got some teachers here in this group that are going to validate it because they want to please me, so I'll come back and tell them a joke or two. I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Gregory. Anyway, what I'm getting at here is the spirit of you works best at play. So one of the things that I love is humor, but I like humor when it's not making fun of another human being, but when it's playing with them to understand the establishment that we're all unique and that I might have opportunity to learn just one little thing about them. And it doesn't have to be about all my rhetoric. So the laws in your universe are significant, and you've established a lot of them now. And it doesn't mean they're right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse than mine, or superior or not from somebody else. That's the wonderful part about them. But you get to add to you, because the soul of you wants to create. And it wants to create joyfully and impeccably, and it will do that throughout your life. Because when the soul of you can no longer create, the body at that point cannot support those creations, whatever they are. And it doesn't mean it just physically breaks down. It just means the soul no longer has a platform to observe its wonderful creations. So while you're over here creating here, and you're over here creating here, all of those creations are something significant and important in life. Always, no matter how seemingly silly, unusual, or different. So the word law is interesting because a lot of people establish absolutes. Being close to the metaphysical arena for over 50 years, because I trained for 7 before I ever got into this work, is that it establishes hierarchy, like better or wiser, or know more than I do, etc. Well, people may have read books, or people may have established and been in circumstances where they've had a lot of wisdoms or insights or information given to them. But the thing is, we are equal adults, no better, no less than any other, you hear it, any other human being on the planet. No matter what they're doing, no matter how prestigious their position is, no matter how wealthy their background is in terms of amassing money and financial gain, So all of us have significance and importance. Natural law was taught by people from the beginning of time. And you can read about the wise people in certain groups and tribal clans. You can read about Aunt Emma, who was stirring soup on the back burner and constantly applying all of those wisdoms and insights with her family and neighbors. So from the beginning of time, people looked at the heavens and they knew that there was more. And there always is. The infinite, in my opinion, is everything and one thing more. It's not one thing to be devoted to. It's everything and one thing more. It's that next blink of your eyes. It's that next breath that you take. It's that next moment and that next idea. And we are in a time right now where natural law, a fascinating thing with natural law is you can read books on it and they can help you establish a mental clarity and mental understanding. And we've got a whole bunch of authorities that have much more recognition about some of the books to read. And then we have opportunity to observe life. And that's something that I started doing long ago. I observed people in the airport when I was there, when I was about 6 in Phoenix. And I'd sit there and I'd wait for guests to come to the resort where we lived. And we would be taking them back to enjoy maybe a month away from Canada in the winter. This is a long time ago. And the airport didn't have all of the restrictions and limitations that it has now. But I would just watch the people. Just watch. No criticism. So what do? Do you watch? Do you look at nature? Do you see how nature works and how the seasons do alter and how even with global warming we have changes? So you can listen to laws. And so today I did not choose one particular law, excuse me, to share with you, but I will share with you a couple of them. And to me, they are prominently important. One is the law of focus. To focus means to bring into clarity, to focus yourself, to focus your ideas, to focus into a project, to be focused about it and not waiting for everybody else to add to it or to confuse it for that matter, but to allow self to then take steps of action that will be of assistance about focusing. And so focusing is also very important about anything if you are one of those that might be in that worry state, is that if you're focused more on the fear or the worry or the concern, you're not focusing on the hope, are you? So that's the hard part. Another law that's important to me is participation. Excuse me. Is that your participation is incredibly significant. If you, for example, if you were sitting here today and your excitement in being here today was because you were waiting until 12:30 when the message service will start, then your participation in this portion is not as focused, you hear it, as it might be. And yet if you are wanting to understand you, the people who founded the religion of spiritualism were often thinkers. They weren't just people sitting in seances and understanding life after death. They weren't just the mediums and the healers. They were people wanting to understand the energies of life and how those energies move and flow and shift and how our knowledge continues to expand because the soul of you continues to expand and expand and expand. And that's the soul of you wanting to create always. Have you ever noticed with a point of boredom that you focusing on why you're bored or why you shouldn't be bored, or if you don't know that you're bored but you're feeling bored? You know that? Well, we go through that too. And then all of a sudden we have a realization, don't we? And there's new clarity and there's new focus because we're suddenly participating differently. So those are just two of the laws that are significant in anything we're doing or anything we're focused on. And if you're focused on family or other relationships or discussions, have you ever noticed in a discussion that when you're talking with another person that it's easy for you to get into that rebuttal state before they've even finished their first sentence? You know, I was watching a silly video about the brain, and it was actually about the male brain, but I'm not here to put that down. Is that it was just saying about the listening portion of the brain is very non-existent. Anyway, and I know, thank you for listening. The thing that was cute about it was that this gentleman was so focused and fluid with what he was saying. I don't know that he could be reading notes because he was just fluid in his delivery. And when I finished watching, I had had a snicker or two. These times are about having a little laughter. These times are about having a little humor. And natural law is a wonderful opportunity for you to know you. A lot of people read the books or they listen to the talks, but they don't live the life of it, and there's no right or wrong in the way it needs to be lived. But natural law is a wonderful opportunity to expand the knowingness of you into the moreness of you that you're constantly going to want to be. And those of you who are here today wanting that sense of self-discovery, it is there at your fingertips at any moment. It's just the fact that so often we have a tendency to stand back and wait, or step forward and then not always watch and see what's going by. So how can we participate at this time in our lives and in humanity? And to me, it's about each other. It's about the recognizing that we truly are together. And yet, sometimes there's this feeling of being apart. That isn't a bad thing, because there's a separateness, because there's a law of separateness also. So that you go within you, so that you establish within you, so that you have a clarity within you, so that your truths are not always based upon what everybody else thinks, what everybody else tells you you should do. There are those of us in this room today that if we did what we had been told not to do, we wouldn't be here. Come on in if you want. So natural law is a wonderful opportunity. You can come on in and sit down. I know, it doesn't work. It just spits water. There's a realization with natural law also that when you're understanding about the energies of life, you can read books on those energies, and you can read about what colors mean, etc., etc., etc. And you can read a lot of different thought processes about it. I just received a book from a woman, and it was about astrological signs and the numerological understanding of your name and how they work together. I have yet to get through chapter 1 because it's a little more complex than I enjoy being. But I got my pen and paper out and tried to figure it out, and then I just sort of closed the book and said, I'll come back to this. And so sometimes your truth is your truth. It doesn't mean that I won't go back because I spoke with her on the phone about her book. But it does mean that you give yourself opportunity to be all that you are and who you are. As we go into this time frame with natural law, there are laws of levitation and gravitation. I keep talking about these two laws because every time you laugh, or every time you feel a little bit more lighthearted, there's a levitation of you. There's a little bit of alkaline happening in the cellular structure of your physical body. There's a little bit of a shift going on within the neurotransmitters in the brain. There's all kinds of wonderful things happening for you physically. And there's all kinds of things happening for you mentally and emotionally. Gravitation is significant. It's the thing that in life, that if it truly was total or absolute, it would pull your knees to the ground all the time, wouldn't it? So there's a bone structure that you think is holding up your knees. But isn't it maybe a balance of the levitation and gravitation in the system? Just an idea and a thought. So we see that in our mental attitudes, and we see that in our ideas. And we've often heard of the law of cause and effect, supply and demand, some of the more commonly spoken laws. But I talk a lot about hope, because to me hope is where it's at for any of us at any age, at any time. And it's to understand that. So if reading a book is a catalyst that helps you explore more of you, go for it. If listening to speakers is the way that you can assimilate and expand, yes. If it's you writing because you're expressing something, one thing is there's a law of impression, and to impress means to lay by force. You can look that up. Webster said that too. But to lay by force, you need two senses operating within you to register an impression about anything, whether it's an intuitive impression or whether it's an impression about something that you're working on or talking about, etc., etc. We don't think about that, do we? We just allow the fact that it's happening. But impression is very important, because this had an impression before it had an expression. This had a design in someone's mind before it was created and prepared. Isn't that true? Every idea you have has an impression before it's expressed out there. So if there is challenge, or if there is the worry that we talked about early, then give it a place to impress it into expressing it. Got it? Now those are just little things, because I'm trying to go around the corner, because I know that there are other people that are much more intellectual about these things than I am. And I mean that with great sincerity. And that's the wonderful part about pursuing what you want to expand on. I studied for 13 years with Reverend Eloise Page. We have a little garden right here adjacent to this building. And she was an extremely eloquent speaker. And so we would listen to her, and we would take from those words ideas and understanding and greater clarity about our own lives. Something that I notice in society in general is many people are busy being busy. And I'm not a real techie person. Most people in this room that know this know that I can delete your email addresses faster than I know what I'm doing, because I've done that by mistake. But what I will say is sometimes the very thing that connects us can often be a disconnection. And that can be also about the things that distract us in life. There's a law of distraction and there's a law of attraction. When we're distracted by so many things, we lose opportunity to explore the attractions that are there. And most people think if something's meant to come, it will be attracted to me. Well, sort of. But if you're looking over here, how can you see that experience going on over here? Well, if you're real psychic, and that's the workshop that's this afternoon, is that if you're real psychic, you might sense it and turn and look. But the majority of people are so busy over here, and that's why in the very beginning when I said, it's never too late to worry, and it's always too early. Okay, questions, because I've heard that you all have questions, so be kind, be gentle, please.
What was the second law that you gave? You had
Focus
never
and
too late to worry, and then what was the second one?
it's never too late and it's always too early.
Always too early.
Yes, sir. They're quiet.
That's unusual. John's not here. There's one in the back.
Uh-oh.
Well, I'm bringing up a question we had last week, and maybe you can help. The question was, what would you consider the prime natural law, the top natural law? After studying this as long as you had, there was a couple of people in the audience last week wanted to know what would be the top one, the top of the tree.
Well, what I will tell you is this. I don't think there is one law that is more powerful or important than all the other laws, because it would discredit the other laws, and all the laws in your universe and mine blend. I know that in studies that often the law of mind is taught first, because it's good to have one. I'm here to tell you, it's very beneficial. But I also really respect the fact that I feel like the law of focus is incredibly significant. Because of the fact that if you're focused on everything but something that's being taught or spoken or you're reading about, I mean, how many people have read a book where they've read through 4 chapters and they can't remember what they read? I think college was like that for me. But, and it's not a discredit to anybody, it's just a statement that says we all are very, very human. I also think that there are laws, a lot of people think the law of attraction is the law, and I don't. Because there are so, Gregory, would you hold this, please? Sure. Oh, thank you so much. Just don't jiggle it, it leaks. If everything in your life is you're waiting to have it attracted to you, then what happens is you're just a passerby and not necessarily participating. You did that really well. I know that the secret of the law of attraction has been very big and very significant. And I will tell you one thing, when you are attracted to something, it isn't always something that you put there. It sometimes, and most of the time, has an awful lot to do with the future finding you. Because in my opinion, when we are born, there are tendrils extending from the very soul of us that are unlimited. You hear the word unlimited? Of all kinds of possibilities of happenings, experiences, and things of occurrences, and not necessarily a finite understanding that it's going to be this, that, and you're going to be wearing blue. But the soul of us is comprised of energies, and when the soul of us no longer is housed in this body, it goes on. It doesn't die out. It's a forever thing. And yet, the soul of us continually adds to itself as long as it is creating in the body. But it doesn't create, in my opinion, just on this earth. And it doesn't just exist, or hasn't just existed from 1642 when you were a yada yada. But we add energies, plural, all the time. And that's one reason why it's very difficult with the COVID situation when people are more isolated, because they're not out there sharing their energy with the energies of everything else. But doesn't mean they can't. And it doesn't mean they have to be disrespectful. But what it does mean is that we allow ourselves to participate in life. So the best law is the one that's most important to you in that moment.
Thank you.
Starting in November, once a month, William Schaff and I will be teaching natural law workshops on Saturday, once a month. We're doing the law of design and preparation the 7th of November. There's a flyer here that Jamie has created wonderfully, and then the dates are on the back for the next year. And I'm thoroughly excited because one of the benefits for listening and one of the benefits for sharing is that in the exchange of the energy and the newness of the realizations, I get to talk. No, but it's also a wonderful time for new clarity and new insights. Are there any other questions?
Just a comment. Thank you for reinforcing my spirit, because I think it's best at play.
Yes.
And I try and go there, but sometimes, like you know, I go off and I think, is this just old age? And I'm having fun.
I think that, there's some jokes that fall flat. I mean, they really do. But I think that the playful spirit is what it's about. It's the fact that, I've been a medium and a minister and teacher here for a long time. And a lot of people say, well, you need to serve spirit. Well, yeah, okay. But that doesn't mean to serve everything else but. My spirit is just as significant. And so it's about us. It always is. And it's not about sacrifice. It's about participating in a way that is your truth. One thing that happens that I find a lot is that people don't live according to their own truth. And so what they can experience is life not being the fullness of what they want. And I understand that that can happen, but that comes from choice. And there are choices. And there is a law of choice. So all of this is a discovery.
There's an online question.
We
Oh,
have a couple of them, actually.
okay.
One is, how many natural laws are there, and which laws are used more frequently in daily life?
Well, Eloise and I used to go to Holiday House and eat buffet dinner all the time. And so one time she wasn't feeling tops, so she said, Diane, I would like you to teach my class for you. I froze because I had never done it. It's like deer in the headlights moment. But there we were at the restaurant, and I literally have the placemat from that night. A little corner of one of those doily looking things that's got all the, anyway, and I wrote down, and I said, Eloise, I'd had all 52, and she looked at me and she said, well, dear, because she called all of us dear. She said, well, dear, she said, there are 52 more. What my experience is personally after all these years is that there are as many laws as there are writers and teachers and people who have shared them. And some people will share different laws named differently than I've heard. So I can't say there's an exact number. I will say some of the more common ones that were established in science are action and reaction, cause and effect. We've got an established kind of thing. And then over here, when you're speaking about what do I teach participation and focus a lot. And I recognize that a lot of it has to do with clarity, because everybody here is intuitive. It's just the fact that not everybody's functioning with that capability leading them forward in their lives because of fears or superstition or religious understanding, you name it, it can be there as sort of a blinder. But I would say also that comparison is a strong one, because most people are comparing themselves to somebody or something all the time. And I would say that I like discovery. I like optimistic words that allow us to embrace ideas and not criticize them. I think that there's an allowance that we can give ourselves, and I think there's an allegiance that we can have to self and life. I think there is will and power, because people want to be having self-control, and yet at the same time they can experience a lack of that. In many areas you can see a lack of control in society in many ways at this time. And that is not a criticism, it's just a fact. It's out there. And there's an energy that we can feel without defining it fully. There is love. There's harmony. We speak of harmony all the time, and harmony for one isn't harmony for another. And then our knowledge is significant. Very. And your knowledge is always going to be uniquely in your, because nobody else is in your skin. Have you ever realized that? It'd be a little crowded in here for somebody in here with me, but the jeans were tight. Maybe there was another person. Whatever, but there's also wisdom. And who's going to determine your wisdom? Somebody else? I hope not. So those are just some.
And we have one more question.
One more question.
Is balance a law, or is it the cause of action or inaction of the natural laws?
Both. Now that's spot on my feet talking. Balance to me is precarious, because a lot of people think that if they only do this, they'll get this as a result, and this as a result will be steady and final. And it's often a new beginning for something more. So yes, there is a law of balance. Anybody else?
I listened the whole time.
Did you? Good job. One thing I want to mention is this book. I just want to do a sales pitch here. This book is a composite of notes taken at Eloise Page's classes over those 13 years. And it's for sale in our bookstore. And yes, this is a sales pitch. But I want to tell you something. It's not, this is not, I don't even have a title page in here. I have a description of me for 1 page, a description of her for 2 pages, and then it goes into her inspirations. Gregory, will you open that and just read one? Just to give you an idea of what's in there. And these are statements of inspiration.
The law of ending a lecture. I'm
Just
joking.
one, Gregory.
The things we do from a voluntary standpoint have unlimited results.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you get one?
Is that
Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for listening and laughing. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And any of you who are feeling like you want to explore your intuitiveness, come on this afternoon. And
what time?
2 o'clock, right here in this room. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Get your folded paper. Thank you so much, Reverend Davis, for being here. Okay. And before we go, we're going to do this one time and one time only. Everyone say hello, Shirley.
Hello.
Hello, Shirley. That's my mom. She says I never say hi to her.
Hi, Shirley.
So thank you for joining us. Next week we'll wrap up natural law, then we'll move into,
Are you dressed to the teeth? She dresses beautifully.
then we're going to go into physical phenomenon. So thank you and have a great day, everyone.